Welcome to this third week presentation for Transactional Analysis Basic course. It is on Transactional Analysis Proper, focusing on interpersonal skills. The three components that comprise of interpersonal skills is recognition of the other, communication with the other, and appreciating the other. So why do we have to communicate? We need to communicate because we are social beings, we have to live together, and so we have to communicate with each other. And this is the way we interact with each other meaningfully. We need that for living together. What is the essence of communication? It's a personal process. It's a process that happens between people. It's a way we express meaning in and we influence people to bring about change in behavior. It's a way we express our emotions and thoughts. Communication is a tool for motivating and influencing others. It's a social and emotional process essentially. Now let's understand what is the difference between hearing and listening. As you can see here, hearing is a physical process, but listening is an active process. It is not passive like hearing. It's a learned process. Listening is a learned process. And this is hard. One has to choose to participate to be able to listen to what is being heard. TA uses the word transactions for communication. And that is why this session is called Transactional Analysis Proper, analyzing communications or transactions per se. So let's see how TA explains communication. TA explains communication through a definition for transaction. A transaction is a unit of social intercourse. It has certain parts in it. Part 1 is a stimulus. A stimulus goes from somebody and then you get a response to that. Between the stimulus and the response, there is a freedom to choose how to respond. So the stimulus, the freedom, and the response together forms a transaction. Let us learn what TA teaches about the theory of communication. Communication is transaction, we saw. So TA teaches that communication takes place between units of personality or ego states. So based on the ego state at rest and the ego states involved and the direction of the vectors representing the transaction, TA has classified transaction into different types and also has elucidated rules regarding transaction based on this. We will go into the details. TA theory teaches that there are three kinds of transactions primarily, and there are three rules associated with each of these transactions. We will see them one by one. The first kind of transaction is called parallel. As you can see in this picture, the transaction occurs between similar ego states or complementary ego states. And the rule related to this transaction is that when transactions are parallel or complementary, it can go on for any length of time. It only says it can go on for any length of time. It doesn't say it will. It doesn't need to go on, but if it needed, they can go on communicating There is no difficulty between two people. That is what it means. Here I am giving an example of a transaction between a teacher and a class group. So the teacher says, nobody should cut this day's class. And the student says, yes sir. So what may be the kind of transaction that is going on? You draw it and then I'll show you. Okay. So the teacher's coming from her parent ego state to the child of the students. And the students, when they say yes, they're coming from the child to the parent. So it's parallel and complementary. Here you can see a few examples of parallel communication between a husband and a wife. When the husband says, where are the children? The wife says, they're playing in the playground. So draw the lines and then we can see how it is. Yes, it's from the parent to the parent. Now the second is, the husband says, I am tired. Today was a busy day. So it's from child to the child. Now the husband is saying, is dinner ready? Wife says, please give me 5 more minutes. That's adult to adult. So all these are parallel transactions. The second type of transaction is called crossed or non-complementary. See what is happening here. A person says from one ego state to another ego state, and the response comes from a non-complementary ego state, and see what happens. The lines cross. The ego states are not complementing, so it is called non-complementary or cross transactions. Here again you can see another example. The adult of one person is communicating to the adult of the other person, but the reply comes from the parent to the child. So when a transaction is crossed, there is a break in communication happening. And so what happens? Either one or both of the participants have to change ego states to continue the conversation. That's the rule related to this. This is a real life example of a cross transaction. Father asking, where did you go? And the son says, I don't want to tell you now. So it's crossing. This is an example of boss to junior. Boss says you have to submit the report before 15th, but the junior says, what does the junior say? It is impossible. And see what happens to the line. The lines are crossing. This is an example of how a cross transaction can proceed. Then I'm taking the same example given before. So the boss and the junior having continuous crosses, and ultimately they end up saying it's a nut. What happens if one or other person change the ego state? So there is a cross, but the boss is asking, why do you think it is like that? So boss doesn't take it as a cross. Boss goes back to the adult and asks why. And so the conversation becomes parallel and it's easy. So change in ego state is the way by which in a situation of cross transaction you can continue to transact. Third type of transaction is called ulterior transaction. That again is divided into two types. Duplex, where both ego states are involved in both persons, and angular, where only two ego states in one person and one ego state in the other person is being involved. The behavioral outcome here is determined by the psychological level transaction. The dotted lines represent the psychological level transaction. So the first may be like duplex one, may be like a friend is inviting somebody for a coffee. A boy is inviting a girl for coffee. Actually, she is saying, I love you. And the girl compliments and goes with him for coffee. if she loves him. If she doesn't love him, she doesn't go. So what the rule says is the response is for the psychological level transaction, which doesn't come in words, which come through body language. So the receiver is sensitive to the body language. That's what this rule is saying. And in the angular type of transaction, again, somebody's adult is communicating to the adult of another person. But also there is a side-by-side communication to the child of the other person. So the response will be from the child. For example, in a shop, if you go to a shop and the shopkeeper says, you ask the price of something and the shopkeeper says, oh, that's very expensive. So your child gets hooked and he says, I want it. So then your child is the one who is buying the product. So this is called ulterior transaction. Real life example of ulterior transaction between a son and a father. So son says, Daddy, I am not going to school. Father says, what can I do for you? It's all parallel, but ulteriorly something is going on. And the father is brilliant, so he is breaking it. Do you have an exam today? Son says yes. And then the father says, so that's it. So here a brilliant father is breaking the ulterior transaction. Ulterior comes unawarely. Ulterior doesn't mean you're consciously keeping something secret. Your body cheats you. The words are social and something else is said by the body. That is what ulterior transaction is about. And you get the response for what you say with your body. That's what the rule says. So reiterating the rules once again, when transactions are parallel, communication can go on for any length of time. When transactions are crossed, there is a break. So one or both persons need to change ego state to continue the transaction. And when transactions are ulterior, the outcome is determined by the psychological level transaction or what the body speaks. So practice for you is practice observation of self and others using the PAC and the transactional types tool. Thank you for listening. If you need more clarity, please listen to the video again or get back to me with some questions. See you in next session.